Hey Firefly, what's up?
What's up, Butterfly? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So, you remember last episode we were talking about like the really taboo subject of the shape of our Earth,
Yes.
and
You
that's
lose a lot of people once you even mention.
right. I mean, there might be nobody listening now because that's a pretty like crazy topic.
Once you go there, a lot of people are like, oh,
I'm
these
out.
people are those kind of people.
These people are those people.
Yeah.
um, well, we were kind of talking about like why would they tell us that?
Yeah.
And we did say, possibly because there's more land out there they don't want us to know about.
Yes.
Um, but I think we have to consider, a big reason for all of these lies, which, of course, the main one is that they want to control us. They want to have power and money. Money is always a big reason for a lot of these
That's
things.
how they have power. They
Yeah,
use money to drive people's behavior and also to shut people up, right?
exactly. And a lot of these things, are big money makers. So all of their NASA and space research and all of those things that they do, they have billions of dollars going into that stuff, supposedly. I
We have
mean,
no
we
idea.
have no idea where that money's really going, but
Never gets audited. We never really see like what it's going towards, nor do the American people have like any say in whether or not that's a good use of our money
yeah,
at this point.
I mean, our tax money is going, billions of dollars are going to research Mars, and maybe we're going to go explore Mars when, there's a lot of people here on or in this planet that are hungry, don't have homes. Like those billions of dollars could be spent
We have
here.
veterans sleeping on the streets,
Right.
and we're going to be like, oh, but wait,
But wait,
look at Mars and
we're going to
that.
take a vacation to
Yeah,
Mars. So, we have to consider that a lot of these things are big money spenders and, big NASA, big pharma. That's another big money thing.
yeah.
But have you ever thought about something else like big museum?
I can totally see that because we spend probably hundreds of millions of dollars on, oh, well, they're curating that museum.
There's all these grants and things, and they have to do a lot of research. And so I thought it'd be fun today to talk about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Could we have been lied to about that?
Well, that's a good question. And sometimes I wonder because, that was another thing that when I was growing up, I never really thought that the dinosaur thing made sense. I don't know. It kind of seems like another fairy tale that they were telling us,
Yeah.
you know?
I've always kind of felt the same way too. I've always kind of been like, oh, it's not mentioned in the Bible or anything.
Yeah.
It's not like, and what would be the purpose of them lying to us about dinosaurs, though?
Well, it's another big money thing,
Yeah,
It's a big money maker. They
that's
have
true.
all these museums everywhere. They've got people believing that, there were dinosaurs living 200 million years ago.
Yeah,
So
I've always had a problem with that.
I've
When
always
you
had a
start
problem with
talking about, oh, well, this is 200 million years
that.
old. And it's
Yeah,
like, well, how do you know that? Well, duh, it's carbon dating. Oh,
that's
but you think that the Bible is ridiculous, but you're going to like do that leap of faith and
right.
just, oh, well, this carbon dating says it's 200 million years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how do you know something is 200 million years old? And those creatures that are 200 million years old left enough oil for us
Mhm.
to be using all these years, but now suddenly we're running out of that
We're
oil
running out.
after
We haven't
200.
had any dinosaur oil in a while.
Because after 200 or 300 million years, it starts to run out.
And we just
So
happen to be there when we need it.
the
You
other,
know?
yeah, we've sucked it dry, so now it's starting. Now we're starting to run out. But carbon dating is sort of like the excuse they give it to rationalize it, sort of like the way they use gravity for the space stories and
Yeah.
the flat earth situation.
Yeah.
It's all explained away with gravity, the spinning ball, and gravity is the excuse for
Yeah.
that. So this excuse that they use is carbon dating, and we're supposed to just believe that, oh, it's 200 million years old. I know that because of carbon dating.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I have a real problem with believing that they've been able to put together an entire dinosaur out of like finding two bones.
Couldn't
And
they
this
have
is the
just
story.
made that in like a machine shop?
Yeah, I mean, this is the story they give that at museums and stuff.
Yeah,
I've read. Have you read this at museums? They say
totally.
we found two bones, and with those two bones, we were able to reconstruct this animal, this
Exactly.
huge
This is
animal.
exactly how it looks.
It's
And
like
we didn't just make this up or anything.
that
And
kind
we
of
also know how old it is. Exactly.
that kind of sounds like somebody who works at Pixar or Disney or something. Might have a really good imagination to be able to come up with the animal based
Yeah.
on two bones.
Yeah.
You
And it
know,
seems like they really love pushing that idea on us. And I think that kind of goes into like, what does academia want us to believe? Rather than that God created us and we're the center of the universe, it's almost like, well, we're just like the dinosaurs and we're going to be extinct soon.
right? Well, they're trying to make us extinct right now.
That's right. And that's like
It
the
might be
whole,
soon.
like we were talking about, like the cult, what they really want us to do is like upload our consciousness into AI. And they have all these books about the post-human world, you know? So what they like to have us thinking is that, oh, well, we're like the dinosaurs, we're going to go extinct. And guess what? That time's coming
Yeah,
real soon.
yeah.
I think that's kind of why
I
they
think
want us pushing that,
I think that's a good point.
you know?
I mean, but why do you think they tell us that it's like something is 200 million years? I think it's another one of those things where if we tell them a lie so big that there's no possible way that they can argue
Yeah.
it because if you say something is 200 years old, you can look back and there's books and things, or like what about 2000 years old? You can look back. What about something that was BC, before Christ? We do have ways of looking into that, but when you go into 200 million years, how can you possibly argue it? There's no
Yeah.
proof of it.
Yeah, it's like, could that be conjecture? I don't know. I'm thinking it probably is. It's like you're just gonna say, and that's just 200 million years exactly. Like, how do you know it wasn't 199,473,000
Right.
years old?
Exactly.
And how many months? How many days?
Yeah.
You know, and I really get annoyed with that. I think because I'm a Christian and I believe in the Bible, I think what a lot of this academia tries to do is use these carbon dating tactics to say, see, it's just so ridiculous. The Bible is, like what I notice is what they want to do is just have the Bible be completely discredited. And it's like,
Insignificant.
look at, we have scientific data. This is all just myths and fables. This Bible is just a bunch of it's like fiction. It's hopium for the masses. Here's the scientific data. 200 million years. It's bigger than what it says in the Bible.
But actually, the stories that they're giving us are the myths and the fables.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Dinosaurs.
They want to sell us on this lie. And what I think you and I, and kind of the nature of our podcast, has always kind of been is, are they lying to us? I don't
Is it
know.
possible? Could it be possible? You know what?
I mean, when I was growing up, remember, you probably remember this show. Do you remember The Land of the Lost?
Yes.
Like, was that a documentary? I was kind of looking back, like going, you know what?
Filmed on like a stage or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, but
This is
you
outer
notice how the
space.
scientific side, the science is always like, well, no, no, no. Now there was a meteor. All of them were completely exterminated, and then man came along. There was never any
No
so that
crossover.
yeah, they know all that too, right?
Yeah. I went to this national park not too long ago, I think a couple years ago in Texas. And so this kind of goes back to the money making thing. They have all these dinosaur areas, and it was a whole thing. They had like a gift shop and like these fake animatronic dinosaurs set up. But then they actually had the real like national park area where you could go on a hike. And I remember walking by, and there was this one area with like a plaque, and it had a it went by a stream, and it's like, look at the footprints, and there were actual real footprints like
Yeah.
3 feet wide under the water, but they were still there. And I thought, that's interesting how, like, those footprints could be made in that stream, and there's water running over it every day for like 200 million years,
200 million
and
years,
it's
and
still
it's
there.
only a couple inches deep,
It
but it's still
it's still
there.
there, and
It's because the dinosaur just left his imprint so hard. It's
it
like,
was it
this
was
will be here forever. I'm a big lizard.
it was probably like 5 feet deep back then.
Yeah,
200 million. Now it's only like an
exactly. He
inch.
just like would go deep into the earth every time he took a step, and now all we see is,
Like
but
2 inches.
still perfectly round, and it's like
I
the
could see the
perfect
claws.
shape of his foot.
It was like a little paw print in some concrete.
Yeah,
But it was real. It was actually a real print, not a fake
I
print in
think
concrete.
you know what a lot of Americans do is they just kind of just nod their head
Uh-huh.
and go, "Oh, okay,
Oh yeah.
wow, okay,
Right.
that's interesting." Like, I see some of these shows on the History Channel kind of similar where, like Carl Sagan will just be like billions and billions of stars, and it's like, dude, how do you know? And then, oh, and this planet is 400 billion years old. It's like, okay, first of all, you don't even know if that's a planet. You're just making stuff up, and then you're going to tell me how old it is.
Yeah.
You
With
know,
carbon dating.
it's carbon dating, and we've derived carbon from that place, even though it's like, really? Would you guys go out there? Even like if you believe that there's a Hubble telescope sending back images, the Hubble telescope is not sending back soil samples. So how are you carbon dating
Yeah.
that planet out there? Well, and then there's probably some scientist who's going to be like, you ignorant sap, let me educate you on how we do that.
I know, totally. I don't know. I think it's just another question that we have to consider
Yeah,
of something so big and so huge, and it's something that we were taught since we were little kids,
yeah,
and the possibility of it not being true
yeah.
is out there, and it's
Well, what
actually.
happens is when you bring this up to some people, they've got this little fragile worldview that they've got. And if you mention could be a lie, there's even kind of a lot of evidence that suggests it probably is a lie. It kind of fractures their worldview, and they're just not willing to do that. So it's better for people to just swallow it and just be like, that's the truth, and then just move on and go drive your Tesla, get your Starbucks, and just kind of move on. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Whereas
Yeah.
people like you and me go, wait, that doesn't sit right with
We
me.
start asking questions. I mean, if you found two pieces of anything, would you be able to figure out how
Probably
to make?
not.
I mean, like, okay, so
It's like
let's
the
take.
features of his nose and everything. Like
Right.
you're got his rib bone. How do you know his teeth look like that?
Exactly. I mean, if you were, let's say you're a car designer, and or you're like an expert in cars, and somebody gave you, like a portion of a fender and a piece of like a
The
spoke,
ashtray.
or
You
the
get
ashtray,
the ashtray. You're like, oh my god,
and
this is a Honda Civic.
you could put it all together.
I know exactly what
Yeah.
this whole car looks like and exactly how old it
And the
is.
color, and
The
what kind of
color and
fuel,
everything. I even know
it
who
runs
was
on.
driving it.
Yeah. I mean,
What from the ashtray? Well, yeah, we got carbon samples from one of the cigarette butts. It's like, okay.
you could be any, it could be any, you could look at it from any area. You could be like a fashion designer, and if somebody gave you a cuff and like a button, and then they said, we want you to put together, like, what did this suit
This
look
was a
like?
petticoat that was a
What
large
Yeah, was this a
size.
suit or a dress? was
Yeah.
it was it like a jacket? What was it? Oh, I know exactly what it
No,
was. I
here's a
couldn't
model of
even tell
what it
you the
is,
fabric.
okay? Exactly. Here's a model that we put together, and this is what it is, and this is how old it was, and this is who wore it. It's
I
like,
mean,
really?
it just doesn't make any sense,
Well, I think what we've been trained to do is just accept that if it's mentioned in colleges, it's
Hmm.
true.
Yeah.
If it's mentioned in high school, it's true. You know what I'm saying?
Or
They would never
elementary
teach us
school. Yeah.
lies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you go in the library, if you find a book in the library that mentions something about dinosaurs, it's
It's
true,
true.
and you're being an idiot.
Yeah.
This is the truth.
Yeah.
Whereas, wait a second, what I'm starting to realize is academia. is run by the cult that's been lying to us about everything.
Mm.
So wait, maybe I should question what I've been taught in school.
You know what's really scary is so in academia, the people that are teaching all of this stuff, I cult members, and I
Members.
think most of them don't even know. They're so deep entrenched in the cult, they believe all of it. And they are the ones that are like pushing all of this stuff and get angry if you question it. They won't, I think, a lot of colleges won't even let you, the students can't even write a paper going against this.
No,
They're
no,
not allowed. They're
you
not
get
allowed.
like reprimanded if you say stuff that goes against. It's an orthodoxy. It's a
Mhm.
religion. It really is. It's a religion. It's an orthodoxy, and you have to just accept it. I think climate change kind of goes into it too. Like,
Right.
oh, by the way, the planet's 400 billion years old, but our Hondas are killing it,
Yeah.
and you had better start making some serious sacrifices for the sake of this planet that's been here for 400 billion years.
Right. And we're going to have to get rid of most of the people to save the
Dinosaurs did
planet.
not destroy it, but my Honda is gonna do it in.
Exactly. And all these people. The
All
people
these
are going to,
people.
we can't have so many people here.
I think that brings up an excellent point too about what makes me question academia and science and big pharma and big museum and all this funding is maybe they're trying to get people to accept the perception that humans are a virus and we're bad
Mhm.
for the planet and you're bad.
Right. You know what?
You're a bad person.
Maybe that's what killed the dinosaurs.
Bad humans.
Hmm.
Bad consuming, diabetic, Kentucky Fried Chicken eating
We
humans.
started using their fossil fuels.
Yeah. We used all their it was made with their blood and their flesh, and I just pumped it in my car. So lame of me. I'm such a virus. That's what it really is. I think actually, if you were to kind of follow the logic of academia and science, what they really want you to finally come to the conclusion is like, I'm just a consumer. I'm the bane of this earth. All I am is toxic, and the best thing for me to do is kill myself. That would probably be the most like humanitarian thing to do, but not humanitarian. It's earthitarian.
Well, they've kind of got, the cult members on that mindset because, look how many people took that shot without even asking any questions
I
about it,
know.
you
There's
know?
something fatalistic about that,
Yeah,
right? It's like
just
I'm ready to die.
it's like
I'm a
whenever they
bad
were told,
person,
yeah,
you
I'm gonna
know?
do it for the good of humanity. I'm gonna
Mhm.
I'm gonna do this to protect everybody else,
Like you ever like been eating a steak in a restaurant, people go by, it's like, eating meat is so destructive for the earth.
Yeah.
It's like, really? What makes you think that?
Yeah.
What have you swallowed? Like I think what happens is all of this mumbo jumbo is pushed into people's brains, and you have somebody that is just going to eat what they're fed, especially from a college professor. They're going to come to these conclusions. And I think that's why what the cult has kind of mastered is perception. They want to give you data that's going to evoke certain response that's going to be your global worldview now. And they kind of want your global worldview to be um, you're a bad person.
Hmm.
Everything that you do to keep yourself alive, even breathing, is
It's
bad for the
bad.
earth.
It's really bad.
You're killing all of the polar bears, which I actually am. That's another thing, too. It's like, are the polar bears almost extinct or are their numbers growing? Because I hear, conflicting reports. From what I understand, now the polar bears are in such numbers that it's actually
Danger.
depleting seal populations in the
Oh
region.
no.
Like but then, you talk to the cult and you talk to like someone from academia, they're going to be like, oh my God, no, polar bears are going extinct. They have no more ice. There's no more ice. And it's like, but wait a minute, it just snowed 4 feet in like 8 hours in Japan yesterday. So I think it's cold some places. I don't know.
I think it is cold. And, it's funny because I don't know why my mind just keeps going back to this, but when you were saying that it's terrible that we eat meat, do you think they
Yeah.
ever stop and think about how, like, some of those dinosaurs actually were meat eaters?
Yeah. I guess they were like advocates for the Brontosaurus, which was clearly a vegetarian.
Right.
It was the T-Rex that really brought about their demise with his meat-eating
Yeah,
habits.
he was the downfall of
As a matter of fact,
dinosaurs.
that's probably what did them in, and then there's all of this speculation like, well, there was a meteor that hit the Earth
Right.
and that killed every single organism on the Earth. And we're just supposed to go, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's feasible. Yeah. So, like a dinosaur that was living like
200 million years.
200 million
ago.
years ago. And we also know from studying, don't worry about how we know, but we know exactly when the meteor hit and we know exactly what the ramifications were. It's kind of like these, they know what the carbon was like back then and they know what the temperature was like back then. And it's like, I don't know. I question how they derive these specific data points sometimes.
I totally question that too.
you know
Hmm.
so I think that kind of pertains to our last discussion that we had about the flat earth, in that we're not really advocating for a position. I think what we're really doing is just going, something doesn't sit right with me, not only with regards to, like, once we start talking about space travel and NASA and all of this weird stuff about what, like, okay, you watch in 1969 and some dude's on a phone that looks like the one my mom had in her kitchen in the 1980s, and he's talking to a dude on the moon. And it's like, wait a second. Wait, how's he do? Are there phone lines that go all the way? I mean,
For that.
for that,
Yeah.
they must have brought phone lines, and then just there was one
Well,
big cord
they had
out there.
they kept like stringing the lines all the way up there
As they're taking off, there was like one dude like unraveling
That
all the
was
way to the
probably
moon.
the guy that took the pictures.
He was the guy who hit the 8 iron,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Yes, I hit that pier."
Yeah.
And it was like, wait a second, that might, and that, yeah, because that was another thing about the moon landing. He's like, who's taking the shots, and what a sacrifice that dude made,
I
because
know.
it's this historic moon landing that everyone on earth is watching, and you're going to be the dude who takes one for the team and doesn't get seen at all. You just are there to capture the footage.
Well, some people don't really like their pictures taken.
He's like,
he's like,
with my spacesuit on, I don't feel like that's my best side. I'm happy to just do the filming. Exactly. And it just, there was some, let's just say it, there were some anomalies that looked really weird. My biggest thing was, wait a second. Okay, the dude from, hey, it's ground control to Major Tom, and he's talking on a phone that's like my mom's dial phone back in the 1980s. It's like, something doesn't add up here.
Oh, but Firefly, that hooked up to wireless back then.
Well, then why? Okay, it's hooked up to wireless. Then why does he have to have a big, like, phone cord? Like, it was like one of those phones where the cord was real long so you can walk to the end of the kitchen and still be talking. It's like, well, if it's wireless technology, why isn't he talking on a wireless, like, device?
Because that would have been too confusing for the people,
And I guess that's what they had to do.
Watching at home.
Yeah, the people at home had to understand that's a phone and he's talking to the moon.
Yeah.
And the thing that kind of troubles me about all that is that wonderful people who I love dearly, like my grandparents, got duped.
Yeah.
If the moon landing is fake, which, wink, wink, I'm pretty sure it is. It's starting to look more and more like that never happened. And my grandpa worked at a company who apparently was creating camera lenses that were used to go up for the moon landing. And I was always so proud of that. I was like, my grandpa was part of the space program. Now it's like, what if my grandpa was just like duped?
He was. Probably was.
And here's an interesting thing about the company he worked for, that you get tenure at 10 years and then you would get, retirement for the rest of your life. And they fired him at 9 years and 6 months, right before he was supposed to get tenure. And I'm going, well, but you're like working with the space program, so heroic, but then you screw someone over like that. Might be telling. But see, my grandpa and my dad and my mom, my dad and my mom are baby boomers, and my grandpa was that World War II greatest generation. What I notice is they have implicit trust. If it's on TV, it's true. Mikey, you shut up.
Yeah, even the ones
telling his son.
Even the ones who, there's a lot of that generation that that doesn't trust the government.
Yeah.
But if they hear it on TV, they trust it. You know,
Or if a doctor tells them,
they trust it.
they trust it. I
Mhm.
think that gets back to what we were talking about last time too, with that Milgram experiment. It's like someone in
In a white
a
coat.
someone in a white coat is telling you to electrocute this person to death, and you're just going to go ahead and do it. 75% of people will just go ahead and do that without asking why. Well, if that's their behavior, then of course they're going to believe whatever you tell them to do. Um, Interestingly enough, remember we were talking about Sirhan?
Did we talk about that? I think
Uh,
off,
off the record, yeah.
yeah,
But we were talking about
because
Sirhan.
that's an episode right there.
That's an episode I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But one of the dynamics of Sirhan is he was MK Ultra,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And they said his personal characteristics that made him
Malleable.
conducive and malleable to being
He was
brainwashed.
he was highly brainwashable.
And why? Well, first thing was he was disassociative. So you could actually like pinch his side, and all of a sudden in his brain, he's in a completely different setting. And we can get into that in an episode.
Mhm.
But the other thing is he is compliant, which means you
Oh,
tell him and he's going to do it.
right.
And if you tell him this is a fact, he's going to believe it implicitly, not question it. You tell him to go do something, he's going to go do it without questioning. There's a lot of people who are like that.
A lot, 75%.
A lot of
At
people are
least.
like that. It's like, oh, okay, well, look, this was on TV. Dan Rather told me this.
Right.
This is true, but wait a second, what if they're lying? And I think once you introduce that notion to some people, they have my favorite term is cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
They have that cognitive dissonance where you go, maybe there are some kind of things that don't sit right, but I'm just not going to look at those things.
They just completely deny what they're seeing.
That's right.
Completely. I mean, you could tell them something plain as day, give them proof, evidence, everything, and they just refuse to see it.
No, that's right. And I think that's what we're running up against
Mhm.
now is that's why this cult is so powerful. Is too many people are gullible. I hate to say it, but they are gullible. Like, here, take this vaccine. It's going to keep you protected from COVID-19. It's like, no, wait a second. I think looking back at the facts, people who took the vaccine, which isn't a vaccine, is a gene therapy, were in the hospital more. They were the ones who got sick with it over and over again. Like, how do people keep getting COVID when you're vaccinated from it?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I believe what I'm told.
What about how the people were so horrified by anybody who didn't take it because
Oh my God.
they were scared? But I was like, well, but if the vaccine is supposed to protect you from getting it, then what difference does it make if somebody didn't
That's right.
get it? I mean,
It's
we
the
should be
virtue
protected.
signal. It's like, oh, but you're infecting others. But if they've got the
But if
shot,
they got the
they're
shot,
fine.
yeah.
It should just be us idiots who didn't take the shot. We're gonna
We
croak.
should.
And have you ever seen that where it's a meme from like the middle of COVID where you have like the full on nurse with the mask and the face shield. Just like, are you arc welding? No, I'm just watching out for a virus and this protects me. And it's going, okay. They're going, you haven't taken the vaccine, which isn't a vaccine, is a gene therapy. And also, you're not wearing a mask. How are you alive?
Yeah.
Because I used to tell people, I think I got an InfoWars mask back in 2020 and it said InfoWars on it.
Oh, jeez.
So it just kind of pissed people off,
Yeah.
But I think I wore that thing maybe 3 times. One time I had to get food from Trader Joe's and I went in there and they're like, put your mask on. And I didn't feel like just like
Having a full on
doing a war with everyone in the store. So I just grabbed my milk and went home. You know what I'm saying? I just put it on like, okay, whatever. But the point is these people are just like, no, 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 no. I've been told. And we've talked about this before too. Oh, we talked about this on a previous episode. It's like, well, if I go sit down in the booth in the diner, I'm safe.
Yeah.
But if I walk into the diner and I'm talking to somebody standing up, now I'm extremely contagious and I can kill Granny
Totally.
immediately. She's
Yeah.
going to die in her seat. So I need to sit down. Then I can remove my mask.
Yeah.
And you ask people, you go, does that make sense? And they just go, I'm not talking to you. You're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. It's like they don't even care if it makes sense.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. It's like blatant. You
In,
know,
in fact, so I had a mask that I wore a couple times during this, and it was
so funny to
you're
think.
allowed, it was mesh with sequins, so it was completely like so sheer and everything.
But they're just like, look, at least you're doing it.
They were like fine with it.
That's fine.
And I have a friend who she made one out of tulle, the stuff that the ballerinas wear, the tutus, the tulle. It's like a net basically. And she wore that to Trader
just
Joe's.
porous, huge holes in it.
Huge
you're just
holes.
like, oh,
she wore that to Trader Joe's, and they were totally fine with it.
They're like, you're complying. Well,
it's like whatever.
This kind of pertains to the dinosaur thing. I think the whole point of COVID was a psychological experiment. Totally. I think it was like the people who orchestrated COVID weren't necessarily virologists so much. There was virologists working on the concoction that they released.
It was a psychological experiment.
It was a psychological experiment, and it was who's going to comply and put on a mask, even though it doesn't make any sense at all.
And you know what?
And who's going to go get a shot from? And you remember that one lady? It was like one of those videos going around back then, and she was like, I think she was like in Long Island or something. She was one of the mayors, and she was like, I'm not asking what's in the infusion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just shoot it up in my arm.
Just put it in my arm. I don't care what it is. And I think people are just like, oh, yeah, that's pretty much how I'm going to live. I'm just going to blindly go along with what government and education tell me. And doctors
TV.
And the
what
TV.
The TV tells me.
Dr. Fauci would never lie to me.
Oh, no.
He killed a bunch of beagles, though. That was kind of fucked up.
I know. I mean, I guess he just doesn't like dogs or something.
It was in the service of helping humans to get better health outcomes, I guess. You just have to put gnats on beagles and torture them to death.
I bet you that all the PETA, people who are probably screaming about people to take their vaccines and stuff would be all up in arms about the beagle situation. What do you think?
What? I think the PETA people, if I would, because I know PETA is totally in the cult, I bet you they would have some strange hypocritical logic about it, where it's like, well, Dr. Fauci's doing that for the sake of science.
So they'd be okay with him torturing the beagles?
Yes. Well, after all, what did Dr. Fauci say? I am science. You don't question me. Yeah. I am science. And I was like, well, how come science is only 5'1"? I don't know. I don't think science would be a little taller and a little better looking.
Yeah.
But whatever. I guess maybe that's actually fitting, because what I'm kind of saying is there's a lot of the science that I don't believe. So if Dr. Fauci is the embodiment of science, I think it's actually fitting, because he's kind of a short little lizard-looking
creepy looking little guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that he is science. That's actually accurate, because that's kind of the way I look at science.
Yeah. I mean, if he was some big, studly, really good-looking guy, I don't know. Wow. We might have to think twice about it.
I'm a little impressed. He's got nice pecs.
Science is looking good.
Science is looking pretty good. Maybe dinosaurs did it. Look at that guy. He looks like Fabio.
Well, I think that was an interesting discussion.
Because we had to kind of tie it in, because once you bring up flat Earth, then you got to bring up dinosaurs. They kind of go hand in hand.
They do.
In a weird way.
I mean, we've kind of gone off the deep end immediately with these two topics.
There's going to be people who are like, these two are such tinfoil hat ranters. And I'm going to be like, well, that's the title of our podcast.
Right. And then there's going to be some other people who are going to be like, oh, these guys are idiots. I know what I'm talking about.
I know science's argument about why all that happened. Of course, It's like, yeah, of course. What I notice is when people are in a bubble, the cult narrative is airtight. Have you ever noticed?
Oh, yeah. You can't argue it.
You can't argue because you go...
Because they've got carbon dating and gravity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's an airtight bubble.
It all up.
It's like, okay, well, could it be that dinosaurs were just big lizards that lived on the earth while man was here? And maybe these notions that the T-Rex and the Brontosaurus, maybe they weren't that big.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just,
Like alligators.
iguanas or alligators or crocodiles, which are gnarly,
Or, you know what they may have been? Dragons.
which I totally believe there was dragons. They could be extinct.
Yeah.
I see now that's something I do believe. Could have been fire-breathing dragons.
We might have a topic on dragons some other time.
It's funny because what they don't want you to believe is probably true.
Exactly.
You never hear anybody in academia talk about dragons.
Yeah. And you know what we were kind of discussing off air, which we'll probably get into in our next episode, is you know how they want to divert your attention from one thing to another?
Yes.
So, that could very well be the case. They don't want us,
as it pertains to dragons.
Yeah, they don't want us looking into dragons, so they've given us dinosaurs.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Why would they not want us to know about dragons?
I don't know. We should look into that.
We should look into that and think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So then what do we have lined up for our next episode, Butterfly?
Well, what kind of rabbit hole do we want to go down? I was thinking, well, actually, I think you were thinking about discussing who the enemy is.
Yes, the real enemy.
The real enemy. And
I like that.
And
the dynamics of the cult and the web.
Yeah. Is the enemy really some big boogeyman somewhere else?
Yeah.
Or could the enemy actually be right here amongst us?
Let's do.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that was
great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting with you again for our next episode of Who is the Enemy? I think that'll be great.
Okay.
Okay. Great talking with you.
Bye.